Welcome back, Summit Co-Chair Katrina Lantos Sweat.
Boy, after you listen to these incredible, powerful testimonies from YY, from Tursane earlier, I think we are all convinced of two things. First, we are most definitely on the side of the angels. And when I think about these women, their courage, their bravery, their voices, and when I think about so many of you out there in the audience who I know of the extraordinary work you are doing, I think that not only are we on the side of the angels, but we may have some angels amongst us. So thank you to all of you. So next, it is my privilege to introduce a wonderful speaker, a person who has had a tremendous impact in terms of bringing the power and passion of faith communities into collaborative partnership with government and civil society. While we rightly celebrate the wisdom of the Founding Fathers in codifying the separation of church and state, it is important to recognize that separation of these two entities does not preclude their collaboration. Indeed, one can argue that such collaboration both strengthens and enriches societies. Melissa Rogers' distinguished career as a lawyer, an academic, and civil servant has focused on the vital intersection between church and state. From 2013 to 2017, Melissa Rogers served as Executive Director of the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships in the Obama administration. Now, I would venture to say that the surest sign that you've done a superb job is being asked to come back and do it a second time, which is precisely what President Biden asked Melissa to do earlier this year. In addition to returning to her previous role, she also serves as Senior Director for Faith and Public Policy in the White House Domestic Policy Council. We should all feel a great sense of confidence knowing that a person of Melissa's caliber and experience is shaping and guiding the Biden administration's efforts to ensure that faith communities are empowered to come together in cross-faith partnerships and to take an active role in our nation's civic and cultural life, a right that should be afforded to faith communities in every part of the world. We are so fortunate to have Melissa Rogers here with us today, and I'm delighted to turn the time over to her. Thank you.
Good morning. It's great to be with all of you. And thanks, Katrina, for that very kind introduction and for your leadership on these issues, including through this wonderful conference. I'd also like to thank Ambassadors Brownback and Saperstein for their distinguished teamwork on international religious freedom, including through this conference. Their collaboration across party lines is a great reminder that we can find common ground amid our differences and work together to change people's lives for the better. Thanks as well to all of you gathered here today, both virtually and in person. It's inspiring to be among so many leaders dedicated to the freedom of religion and belief for everyone, everywhere. I'm pleased and honored this morning to bring you warm greetings from President Biden. As the President has said, ensuring freedom of religion is as important now as it has ever been. This right, as you know, is enshrined in the First Amendment to our Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. As you know, that declaration states that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes a person's freedom to change religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. President Biden, a person of deep faith, certainly understands the importance of religious belief and practices in the lives of so many. The President has said, and I quote, The work of protecting religious freedom for people in all faiths and none is never finished. We must be vigilant against the rising tide of targeted violence and hate at home and abroad, and work to ensure that no one feels afraid to attend a religious service, school, or community center, or walk down the street wearing the symbols of their faith. My administration, President Biden says, will guard these cherished principles. The United States promotes religious freedom as a key part of a larger agenda to protect human rights. In addition to the State Department's Office of International Religious Freedom, which I'll refer to as the IRF office, the department also has, for example, a Bureau of Democracy, Rights and Labor, a Bureau of Population, Refugees and Migration, an Office of Global Women's Issues, a special envoy to advance the human rights of LGBTQI+ persons, an Office of Global Criminal Justice, and an Office to monitor and combat trafficking in persons. These offices and advisors work together and are dedicated to promoting the equal value and the infinite worth of every human being. These precious rights are interdependent. A congregation that is predominantly comprised of members of a minority race or ethnicity, for example, can't gather for worship and carry out its ministries unless it is free from both religious and racial or ethnic discrimination. And the many LGBTQ individuals who are also persons of faith cannot practice their faith freely when they are subject to laws criminalizing them for who they are. As Secretary Blinken has said, religious freedom can't be fully realized unless other human rights are respected. And when governments violate their people's right to believe and worship freely, it jeopardizes all the others. This morning, I'd like to highlight briefly a few steps the Biden-Harris administration is taking to protect and advance religious freedom for all. Let me begin with our moral obligation to protect refugees. As you know, the number of refugees and other displaced persons has reached an alarming and historic high, more than 82 million people worldwide. In response, President Biden has raised our annual refugee admissions cap to 62,500 for this fiscal year, and he plans to raise it to 125,000 next year. He has also ensured that our refugee admissions program is able to serve refugees from around the world by reestablishing regional allocations and eliminating restrictive allocation categories. Of course, governments cannot do this work alone. I run the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, as was mentioned earlier, and we work in partnership with communities of faith and conscience to welcome refugees and to advocate for their rights in all of their home countries. And we continue to be very grateful for these partnerships. The U.S. is committed to upholding its long tradition as a leader in refugee resettlement that provides a beacon of hope for persecuted people around the globe, promotes stability in regions experiencing crisis, and facilitates international collaboration to address the global refugee crisis. Also, on his first day in office, President Biden revoked orders and proclamations preventing certain individuals from entering the United States, first from primarily Muslim countries and later from largely African countries. These actions were a stain on our national conscience and inconsistent with our long history of welcoming people of all faiths and no faith at all. As President Biden said at the time, make no mistake, where there are threats to our nation, we will address them. But we will not turn our back on our values with discriminatory bans on entry into the United States. The Biden-Harris administration advocates for universal respect for religious freedom in many other ways as well. Here are a few additional snapshots. First, in January, Secretary Blinken affirmed that the People's Republic of China is committing genocide and crimes against humanity against Uyghurs and other ethnic and religious minorities in Xinjiang. In March, Canada, the European Union, the UK, and the US took coordinated action to impose sanctions on PRC officials for these human rights abuses. And at the recent G7 summit, the world's leading democracies stood united for religious freedom and against forced labor, including in Xinjiang, and committed to ensuring that global supply chains are free from the use of such labor. Our administration has translated these commitments into a series of actions imposing import and export restrictions on PRC companies for their use of forced labor from Xinjiang. In recent months, the State Department has advocated for the rights of countless individuals in China who've been subject to a widespread crackdown by the authorities against religious and ethnic minorities, including Tibetans, Falun Gong adherents, Christians, and Uyghur Muslims. We will continue to use all appropriate tools to promote accountability for those responsible for human rights and religious freedom violations and abuses in China and elsewhere. Second snapshot. Through engagement with governments in regions across 3 administrations, the State Department, including its IRF office, has advanced progress on religious freedom in Central Asia. Uzbekistan's recent positive actions, which include releasing political prisoners and revising its laws, have been well documented. Tajikistan is now set to receive the UN Special Rapporteur for Freedom of Religion and Belief for the first time, and recently announced plans to adopt a human rights action plan. Turkmenistan released 16 Jehovah's Witnesses conscientious objectors from prison in May, and we hope to see further reforms. Another snapshot. The U.S. has taken strong stands in support of democracy and human rights in Burma. As the Burmese military accelerated violence against civilians in the wake of the February coup, the administration provided emergency support for members of various ethnic and religious minority groups at a time when many found themselves in the military crosshairs for actions as simple as praying for peace. In 2020, the State Department again designated Burma as a country of particular concern for severe violations of religious freedom. Another snapshot. In June, the IRF office worked with our missions abroad to track the disturbing global uptick in both anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim incidents and sentiment related to the Israel-Palestine conflict, including a surge in online hate speech and tropes, vandalism of temples and mosques, and harassment and physical assaults. Also, the IRF office has maintained international momentum and enthusiasm for the ministerial to advance religious freedom. We look forward to participating in what we hope will be the first post-pandemic in-person ministerial to be hosted by the United Kingdom in London next summer. We'll look forward to seeing many of you there. And the final snapshot I want to provide is that the IRF office has, as a co-founder and an active participant in the International Religious Freedom or Belief Alliance, has been continuing their investment in this very important group that I know so many of you are active in. So thank you for your work there. The IRF office, even during the pandemic, has been meeting monthly with envoys representing like-minded governments to share information and coordinate religious freedom advocacy. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, this group has played crucial roles. Alliance members have advocated for governments to release all prisoners held on account of faith or belief. They've called upon governments and religious leaders to avoid language that scapegoats certain religious and belief communities. They've also urged all governments to take proactive steps to ensure that individuals in minority and religious belief communities are safe, protected, and receive health services in an equitable and non-discriminatory manner. And we've been pleased to take note that hundreds of prisoners of conscience have been released during this period of time, and governments have condemned incidents of discrimination and violence against members of vulnerable communities, showing the enduring power of this alliance, and we look forward to working closely and actively with the members of this alliance moving forward. President Biden looks forward to nominating a highly qualified ambassador at large for international religious freedom. He looks forward to doing so in the coming weeks to carry forward these and related efforts. As important as the work of governments is, Eleanor Roosevelt was correct when she said that the destiny of human rights is in the hands of all our citizens and all our communities. The United States government deeply values the role of civil society in advancing international religious freedom and human rights more broadly. Your work is vital to informing our engagement and advocacy, and you also hold us accountable for our efforts to promote the values in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You know, listening to the speakers today, and I know we've had a great day yesterday as well, it's plain there is so much common ground on international religious freedom issues. It's inspiring, it's encouraging. There is so much good we can do together to alleviate suffering around the world, to recognize the dignity of all, and to restore hope. This is an exciting opportunity for us to work together, and President Biden and his administration looks forward to working with you to do this important work. We offer our thanks and our best wishes for you at this conference as you do this work here, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the days ahead. Thank you so much for the time to be with you today.